Hey everyone, Genome here, coming up with my Nightmare on Elm Street series ranking review.
I've been looking forward to this.
Yep, this one's been long awaited, well, at least by some, and I actually neglected to do this for my Friday the 13th series review, so I'll have to go back and do that retroactively, I guess, but we'll see. One thing at a time, these movies are still really fresh in my head, so I want to go ahead and do this now. So basically, this is a ranking in particular order of my favorites to least favorite of the series, but I'm actually going to invert that and go from my least favorite all the way to the favorite. Kind of makes sense, get someone to look forward to, right? So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. I'll just get into why I find each movie, entertaining and what I like about it, and then kind of just move on. I won't spend too long on each film. Also, disclaimer, I know this will probably draw a little bit of hate for some of my choices out there, and I'm not necessarily saying these are the best, quote, movies in the series, but the ones I find most entertaining. So it kind of mingles in with the quality of the movie and how entertaining I find that. And don't you like how I do the, Rubik's Cube kind of freaking talking points here? Anyway, let's get into the ranking. So, starting with my least favorite of the series. Now, these three movies are basically almost interchangeable in my dislike for them, but one stands clearly above the rest, and that is A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Style. I think this is almost quite easily the worst in the entire series for myriad reasons that I went over in my review. The humor is forced and cringeworthy. It's not even good Freddy humor, it's just bad, and it is everywhere.
It's a boy!
The kills are pretty poor, though inventive, I'll give it that. And there's kind of an interesting little gothic atmosphere, at least when it has to do with the old asylum. But, this is weird subplot going on with the nun having to reabsorb Freddy to finally defeat him, and that doesn't work, of course, but it's just an all-around slog of a movie. Alice is back, which is good. I like Lisa Wilcox quite a bit as a final girl, but she doesn't retain any of her powers from the last one. So the only thing she still has is confidence and knowledge, but it's basically, she doesn't do much. She's not getting much to do. It's almost, once again, a fetch quest. As friends die off, she has to, fetch clues as how to defeat Freddy because she can't do it physically anymore. I don't know. I would like to have seen a carryover of her power set from part 4 to make it more interesting. And the ending was just so weird with the Freddy merging with her and then splitting up, and then the three souls escaping the back of his body, and the whole feeding the in utero child souls and stuff. It was just a strange movie. High concept, poor execution.
Told ya! Comic books was bad for ya!
Terrible makeup, so-so effects, and absolutely abysmal humor make this, and just being a drag of a movie, make this gotta be my least favorite of the series.
It sucks!
Alright, there it is. My least favorite of the series. Now the next two are very interchangeable, but I'm gonna say Freddys Revenge, Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is my next to least favorite of the series. Many purists will say this was the dark Freddy, this was the intimidating Freddy.
You've got the body. I've got the brain.
I didn't see that in this movie. Yes, he didn't joke the one-liners like he did in the other ones, but it didn't make him necessarily scary. About the only noteworthy scene in this entire film for me was the bus scene. And like many other scenes in this movie, it was drug out entirely too long. They should have got a little more to the point. And this was a short movie, like 83 minutes. And there was just a lot of scenes that drug, that were pointless, that were cringe-inducing, and any logic that was gained or knowledge of the lore that was gained in the first movie is completely eschewed in this movie. It's completely out the door. The whole rampage and the pool scene, that was just a cheap way to up the body count, but it made no sense from the already established lore. So I know horror movie lore tends to change quite a bit from sequel to sequel, but this was almost just inexcusable. And the whole subplot is Freddy not using dreams anymore. He's using possession now to take over people. It just makes no sense. Plus he didn't die in the house anyway. So why is he suddenly tied to his house? It's a mess of a movie. I think it's boring as heck. Kills are awful. And this Dark Freddy, which we barely see any of, is I just don't find him all that good. I'm sorry. I mean, not saying Robert isn't bad in any one of these roles, by the way, that he's in. Even in the poor ones, he does what is expected of him. But I just find the movies bad. So Freddys Revenge got to come up in my runner-up to least favorite Nightmare on Elm Street movie. So up next, it's to no one's shock, but what is shocking is it's not actually my least favorite, which I think it usually almost always universally winds up as the most hated movie in the series, and that's A Nightmare on Elm Street 6, Freddy's Dead. So, or should I say Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. However you want to say it, this movie kind of stinks. But at least it's a somewhat entertaining stink. Unlike 5 and 2, which take themselves pretty seriously, this movie doesn't. It's kind of irreverent in a way, and the humor is obvious.
Nice hearing from you, Carlos.
It's awful. Don't get me wrong. The humor in this movie is terrible, and this is probably, just as a sheer cash grab moment and as a slap in the face of fans, this is probably the worst one, but at least this one was semi-entertaining in points, you know?
You're right.
I kind of cared about the 3 kids, you know, somewhat. Well, at least Carlos. I like Carlos. The other 2 are meh. But, and there was an interesting subplot there. Interesting by, I mean, at least somewhat passable, of who was Freddy's kid in this. Yes, the idea is far-fetched and ridiculous in the entire movie, and once again, the lore that was established before is ridiculous. They spent way too much time on pointless cameos that no one cares about and certainly date the movie even more than it already is. They could have taken that money and time and put it towards making a better final product. I'm going to use air quotes a lot, I think, in this review series or ranking video. So yeah, it was at least somewhat entertainable, but the ending was awful. Freddy was awful. Who can forget the Power Glove?
Come on, John. Good. Get out of here now, Tracy. Now.
Hey, you forgot the Power Glove!
And it's just cringy movie, but at least it's kind of fun to watch. And this is a really fun, like, so bad it's good movie, right? This is not like, oh, what's a good example of this? Maybe Jason Goes to Hell, you know, kind of movie where you sit there and have a group of friends together and kind of rag on the movie, even though it's kind of enjoyable. But at least Jason Goes to Hell actually had a director that cared about it, and when he changed the lore, he at least changed the lore in a way that made sense. If you've seen my review, which I'll try to post a link to in the comments below, or my interview with Adam Marcus, writer and director of Jason Goes to Hell, he goes through a very lengthy explanation of why he did what he did with the movie. So upon hearing that, it made a lot of sense to me. So, but anyway, Freddy's Dead, awful movie.
We call it the Denver Jockstrap.
So those bottom 3 really are almost completely interchangeable in my least like, but that's probably the order I would rather watch them in. So let's get into stuff now that I would not mind watching. And my next choice would probably, once again, ruffle some feathers, but I'm going to say that the 2010 remake would be next on my list of favorites to watch. Yes, the movie is pretty bad. It's hampered by pretty lackadaisical acting for the most part. There was a couple standouts, like I said. Watch my review to see those in depth, but a couple of the, and these were admittedly the earlier actors tried, and Jackie Earle Haley was just fine as Freddy. I had no problem with his portrayal at all.
Did you know that after the heart stops beating, the brain keeps functioning for well over 7 minutes?
Makeup is a little bit weird, maybe a little more realistic, but the movie tried at least to pay a little fan service. It was kind of unoriginal, but they did change enough things about, since it was a remake of the original, they actually changed enough things about the original to not make it a complete cheap cash grab. Kind of like, think of, what was that Star Wars movie that came out? Force Awakens, I think it was. When it was just a complete rehashing of the original movie, just with more fireworks. Well, this one was loaded with CGI that was bad, definitely a negative, but like I said, there was enough cool things that were tried. They made Freddy a darker character, even though he did start resorting to wisecracks towards, you know, the latter third of the movie. But they kept him as like a darker, scarier portrayal, which was kind of nice. The whole thing is kind of slick and polished. They introduced micro naps. Okay, whatever. It's just if the lead actress, you know, taking up the role of Nancy was just a little more engaging, and by a little bit, I mean any bit engaging, this movie could have been a lot better. But as it is, it's just kind of middle of the road. But I've seen worse remakes and I've seen worse movies. So is it in my, you know, list of movies that I want to watch a lot of? Heck no. I don't know when I'm going to watch this again, but it could be a couple years from now, and I don't think I'd have a problem putting it on, you know, the player and, you know, throwing 90 minutes of my life into it. It's really not that bad.
Wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up.
You really shouldn't fall asleep in class.
A lot of people get on the hate wagon in this movie just because it's popular to do so. Just because Robert Englund didn't play the role well, you know what? Sometimes long-standing characters gotta change. You know, Christopher Lee can't play Dracula forever. Bela Lugosi can't play Dracula for 100 years. If they're still making Freddy movies in the future, people have to get over the fact that new people are gonna have to play him. Because you don't want to replace him with CGI characters like, oh, what's that other series did? Star Wars again, and have it look completely ridiculous. Same thing with the Tron Legacy movie. That was kind of really bad, how they had like Clue in there looking like Jeff Bridges from 1983 or whatever. But review of Tron coming up soon, by the way. So yeah, the remake would be next. So let's get into the next in my ranking video. And this one, I kind of, once again, could almost swap it with Remake here, and that's Wes Craven's New Nightmare. This movie has a lot going for it and a lot going against it. I don't mind this so much, but this movie is slow. This slow burn movie. If you were to see slow burn in the dictionary for a horror movie, this movie would probably be the prime example of it. You know, it just takes a long time to get going. The body count is very low, and what you do get of them is not very good or memorable, right? Freddy's remake-up is just so-so. I'm not a fan of it, to be honest with you. I don't mind the trench coat with the suddenly green and perfect hat, the Hot Topic freaking leather pants and thigh-high freaking Doc Marten boots. Not really a fan. I don't mind the organic gloves so much, but...
Dylan, what's the matter?
And his face just looks strange now, and they try to make him look more demonic, but I like his original makeup better. It worked just fine. But this is an interesting meta movie, before meta movies were cool, right? So I can give Wes and all that some real credit for trying something pretty new, even though it had been done in movies before. But, you know, it did bring some new life in the franchise, but I think this was either the lowest or one of the lowest financially successful of the series. So, you know, people were kind of getting sick of Freddy. You know, he tried something new in this one. They just needed a little more bombast, but they tried to set this in the real world. So, of making a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. It's, once again, see my reviews if you've never seen this before, but most of you know what's going on with this film if you're watching this ranking review. So, somewhat enjoyable. Heather Langenkamp was pretty good most of the time as Nancy. She seems very maternal and caring about her son Dylan. But there's a lot of, like, really, really draggy stuff. Like, I don't like any of the hospital scenes at all. I can't stand the traffic, you know, the kid walking across traffic scene. And, you know, Dylan's performance is hit or miss. You know, once again, the child actor is very young. He's prolific, but so you can't expect too much. But, like, when you get used to, like, say, Corey Feldman's Friday the 13th Part 4 portrayal, or even the kid who played... what was his name? Jacob in Dream Child. He was much better at line delivery and all that. And so, you know, part of that's probably direction and writing, what they made him do, constantly screaming and looking vacant. But the movie was just full of promise. But then you get to the last, maybe the last act, whole act period. I don't care for it. I don't like the whole dream world / Roman Coliseum meets, you know, Dante's Ninth Circle of Hell. Whole aspect of stupid Freddy becomes a bumbling buffoon at the end when so much time and effort was tried to make him look, you know, scary and dark again.
Miss me.
Just because he doesn't joke anymore or as much doesn't mean it makes him scary or dark. He still falls over furniture. Heather still easily, you know, fends him off at all different given points, and then he's killed in one of the worst ways I've seen in the entire series, especially if you consider the CGI that was available at the time. It just looks awful. And it's just ridiculous and stupid. But it was a cool premise movie, and there is this feeling of dread in it. So I will give it, you know, higher marks for that.
It doesn't suck.
So I'll say New Nightmare is my 4th favorite of the series. So hey, a quick addendum for those of you wondering why I didn't include Freddy vs. Jason on this. I didn't think it'd be fair to like basically label this as a Nightmare and or Friday the 13th movie. So I probably won't be including this in either the Nightmare on Elm Street rankings and or into the Friday the 13th series. There's just really, it's kind of a standalone movie since you're taking basically half from each thing. It's kind of hard to label it either a Nightmare or a Friday the 13th movie, so that's why it's not here. If I was to rank it, I'd probably put it somewhere between the remake and, actually it might be a little more fun than New Nightmare. Probably it's in that area though, of the remake and New Nightmare. So right in the middle of the pack. There are some entertaining aspects to it, but it's, in the end, it's not a great movie, but at least there's a couple of good fights in there. So yeah, that's where Freddy vs. Jason lies in this ranking, if it were to actually be in the ranking. That's enough from me. So here we are, top 3. So, you know, process elimination definitely leads one to know who I'm going to be picking next, but the order might surprise and probably annoy some of you, but you know, it is what it is. These are the ones I find most entertaining, the ones I want to watch the most, and the ones I think that have the highest quality. You know, all those different criteria will kind of gel together to help me pick my number 1. So number 3, let's get right into it, is also the 3rd movie in the series. Yes, you're all expecting me to make that number 1 or 2, but Dream Warriors is my 3rd favorite of the series.
What? You were the chosen one!
This movie's got a ton of good things going for it. It's got, most importantly, really to me, is it's got a cast of kids slash victims that you actually care about, right? You feel sorry for these kids. You know, they've been ravaged in dreams by Freddy for a while. They've been institutionalized. No one believes them, and their plight is very relatable once Nancy gets involved and she starts trying to tell the normies out there what is going on. But she knows what's going on. And these kids are just getting picked off one by one, but you feel for them. I mean, not only are they getting killed, but they're stuck in this institution, even though they're not crazy. But it sounds crazy to anyone else listening out there. But there's so many inventive kills in this movie. A negative, I will say, is this is the beginning of Freddy's ironic kills, which get basically recycled through the entire series after this. Every kill, maybe once you get to New Nightmare Remake, that goes away somewhat, but every kill has to be something that the person already fears, or it has to be funny in this ironic way, or set up earlier in the movie. So that's not bad, but there's a lot of really inventive kills here, like Taryn getting killed by the hypodermic needles in the fingers. This is also a special effects tour de force. These first 4 movies really were all like really great effects movie, but this one really shines in its kind of grittiness and of its look. You got the most probably cringe-inducing kill of any movie, period. You know, I can't remember his name, but when the puppet guy gets freaking marionetted by his own veins and then forced to walk off the ledge, it's just brutal to watch. Wince every time I see it. It's still incredibly effective. There's memorable lines all throughout this movie, for good or ill, because it did turn him into the jokester that he is. That's part of the negatives of this movie, but we'll get to that in a minute. Freddy's makeup looks great. His portrayal is great by Robert. Robert really dialed in on this one, mixing the menace and humor very well. Patricia Arquette was decent as a final girl, not my favorite, but she is a very good non-verbal actress. Yeah, just looking at the camera, looking scared, looking, you know, consternated, and she's very good at that. Heather Langenkamp coming back is so-so. It's kind of like I see or feel about all of her performances in the movies. Decent, but nothing too spectacular. But anyway, it's just a cool thing to see finally people get powers that can hopefully rival Freddy, or at least help them fight back in the dreams instead of just being gibbering, terror-stricken victims. So great soundtrack, great dream sequences, and a menacing Freddy make for a really fun watch. A couple negatives though, like I said, is the aforementioned comedy. This is when Freddy starts turning into a quipster. Every single kill in this movie, he throws a joke at the character before he kills him. that's not scary. I'm sorry, that takes most of the fear out of it. Most of these weren't so cringe-inducing. At least they were darkly ironic and humorous when he said them. But it was the beginning of the end for the scary Freddy here, and most people will look past that in the movie and skip right to 4 and blame that one. But really, it got its start here. He tells just as many jokes here as he does in 4.
The truth hurts, doesn't it, Habsburg? Oh, sure. Maybe not as much as jumping on a bicycle with a seat missing, but it hurts.
It's just, it seems a little less brightly lit and fun as it did in 4. But, so that part was kind of bad, and most of the dream powers kind of sucked. You know, let's face it, they didn't really do much against Freddy. It was all basically the people in the real world that were doing it. But it did allow them to survive long enough to get to that point. So, very satisfying ending, by the way. That's how you kill off the bad guy, instead of it, like the 1-in-1 or basically any other endings one. This one was just cool because they were fighting him on 2 fronts. Very cool stuff. So yes, Dream Warriors, my 3rd favorite of the series. So top 2, who's it gonna be? Part 1 or part 4? Well, for those of you who watch my reviews will probably know already that it's gonna be Dream Master. It is my 2nd favorite of the series.
What? Oh! Oh no!
I just find this movie incredibly entertaining. It's so fun to watch. They call it Nightmare on Elm Street for the MTV generation. It's hard to argue with that, but that kind of takes away a little bit from the accomplishment this movie did. Like, let's get to the negatives first. All right, the purists are gonna get onto. You know, the funny Freddy. Yes, it's annoying. You know, the beach scene where he throws on sunglasses was ill-advised to say the least. I did like the beach scene. I thought it was kind of a cool idea to, even though you're in a place you think you want to be, Freddy can still turn it sour on you like that. But yeah, some ill-advised humor in this movie, but most of it kind of lands, right? He's a jokester, but he also has still a bit of deadly earnestness to him.
Your shift is over.
So that's the negative, right? The ending is a little bit contrived too. Like, where did the seeing his reflection come from all of a sudden, and why is there glass all over these dream worlds? Remember, he was in the freaking Hall of Mirrors or whatever in part 3. Why didn't he implode then? So that was a bit like last minute freaking home run there that just didn't sit well with me too well, but just about everything else about this movie I liked. I liked the cast. You didn't see the tertiary characters too much, like the ones that were obviously going to be victim Freddy meat, right? But they each had their quirk. Of course, that was to help kill them in the ironic kill scenes, but you know, it is what it is. It's what we got. This movie actually had the cojones to kill off the last 2, or basically the last 3 remaining characters from Dream Child. Very popular characters. You know, and the first to go was Kincaid and then Joey. Those 2 were goners fast.
Tell him Freddy sent you.
So a lot of people got mad about that. I liked it. It's, you know, you start a new series, you know, they didn't, you know, other than surviving, they didn't offer too terribly much from the last movie anyway, so it wasn't a huge loss. I liked them somewhat as they were portrayed in this movie, but I mean, it didn't bother me, you know, that they got offed. You know, it's a horror movie. People are going to get offed, you know, and I hadn't really grown too terribly attached to them, so whatever. I like Freddy's resurrection scene. I think the scene in the junkyard is amazing, especially when they do that cool friggin' pan-out shot of the entire Earth being the frickin' junkyard. Yes, it's a matte painting with some other stuff superimposed, but it looks cool, and it's so inventive, and it gets your mind thinking about how powerful Freddy really is. He's got that Hellraiser-esque reforming of his body. It just works really well, and at least that first kill is kind of dread-inducing because Freddy just gets right to the point, and you see, oh, he's back, no one is safe again. But after that, it does lose any kind of like scariness factor. Not that these movies were scary anyway, outside of the first one, right? But anyway, this is special effects tour de force. This is the best special effects of the entire series, bar none, easily. The only negative you can say about them is everything's so well lit that it doesn't look quite as scary as it should, but just so many good sets, so many good set pieces, so many good effects in this movie. Like, they couldn't match it in 2010 with, you know, CGI nonsense, and it just looks so good. All the practical effects look amazing. Freddy's makeup looks the best it probably does in the entire series. And it's a great film to look at. Very colorful, and like at the very end, they got the church all lit in red and greens.
You've got their power. I've got their souls. Come on. Come on.
While usually that kind of trope bothers me somewhat, like see my review of part 2 for that when it was so blatant and obvious, that one it just worked. The final girl, best final girl in this series, one of the best final girls in horror, period, Alice. Alice, I said this before, if you've ever read Joseph Campbell, you know about the hero saga, the hero's tale, how the hero starts from nothing, works them way up. You know, Alice starts off as a shy daydreamer, non-assertive whatsoever, would never survive Freddy's onslaught, or basically anyone's onslaught in her original form. But as her friends die, because of the power she absorbed from Tina or whatever, you can see her growth as a character. She gets more confident, she gets these powers, she gets stronger, and at the end, she's able to go toe-to-toe with Freddy for quite a while, right? I love that. That's how you do a final fight in a final girl, right? And she wasn't like obsessively cocky either. She just was doing what she had to do to survive, right? And to protect the man she loves, right? Great final girl, and I was just so sad they wasted her so badly in part 5 after building her up so greatly. So yeah, it's great to see her start from nothing up into the powerhouse she becomes. And she wasn't like, I mean, she had, I think, a line or two, a wisecrack or two, but she wasn't like the grinning hero all of a sudden. She was just grimly determined to survive, and Lisa Wilcox played her very, very well, I thought. So just, I think, a great cast, great special effects, a fun story, and even though I didn't care for the ending or how it was done, I mean, it looked freaking incredible. His best looking death scene as well, by far, in the entire series. So Linnea Quigley made a guest appearance for that. But it was a shoot wrought with problems and troubles and disagreements, but they still got it done, and they still got basically the highest grossing Nightmare on Elm Street movie put out there to film, and I was happy to have it. When I was younger, this was my favorite one.
I love it.
But we are down to the top. My favorite, and I think the best movie in the series, and here it is. This is always either number 1 or 2 on everyone's list. For me, it's number 1, of course, and this is the original, A Nightmare on Elm Street. This movie scared the Hades out of me when I was younger, because I saw it probably in 85 or so. I was like 8 or 9 years old, I think, when I first saw this movie. Maybe even 7, I can't remember. But I saw it way too soon. And it gave me nightmares and problems for a long time. This was the dark Freddy. I mean, other than, you know, self-mutilation jokes, he wasn't really joking around with people. He was deadly serious in going after people. Yes, he was terrifying them and scaring them and drawing energy from their fear. We find out that later on, which is kind of the reason he was messing around a little bit. But oh man, what an inventive villain. Yes, I know Wes put his guy together from, you know, real life anecdote or real life stories that he read about and some childhood trauma that he received from a vagrant or whatever when he was younger, but still, he made basically the most iconic and different slasher basically in movies. Well, iconic's a bit of a stretch, but maybe it's got to be easily the most inventive of the series. So it's like, all right, this man goes and gets you in your dreams, man. It's just, and then it just opens up a world of possibility, especially for future installments of what you can do with him. But it's like, this is a killer you cannot escape. Everyone has to sleep. So, great stuff, man. Like, the story is good. I care about every single character in this movie. He throws a freaking curveball at you, because it looks like Tina is going to be the final girl in this movie, because like the first 20 minutes is almost dedicated to her. And all of a sudden, bam, she's off in the best kill of the series, and maybe the best kill of all horror movies of all time. It's just so effective, and it works so well, and it's so inventive, just like so much else in this movie. But yeah, it looks great. It was done on a shoestring budget, but it still looks good, like I said.
Tina?
Once again, this is another set that was plagued with problems, mostly budgetary reasons, and some disagreements with the production staff and the directorial staff. But still, I mean, it got made. It's a masterpiece. The musical score is amazing. I forgot to mention that in Dream Master 2. Amazing, amazing soundtrack and score. But this one had the iconic da na 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 na. kind of freaking tune it was introduced to us. And just like I said, lots of cool special effects, great performances by most of the cast. Nancy was okay, but everyone else was really good for the most part. But just the premise itself was so good. The movie was so dark, it was so scary, and so inventive that I think it's easily the best in the series as far as overall goes, and definitely my favorite of the series as it stands now.
Agreed.
So unless something else is released, that is my ranking. So just a quick rundown in order of appearance. So my least favorite to favorite. Dream Child is my least favorite. Freddys Revenge is my second to least favorite. Freddy's Dead is my third to least favorite. And those are all pretty much interchangeable because they're all equally about terrible. But after that, we got the remake, then New Nightmare, then Dream Warriors, then Dream Master, and then finally the original. So there it is. This got a lot longer than I wanted it to be, but there's so much to talk about in this series that I think need to be conveyed. So yeah, anyway, I hope you enjoyed. There'll be one of these for the Friday the 13th series coming up shortly because I was remiss in my duties to not do it when I did all the reviews for the Nightmare or the Friday series. So bam, there it is. So anyway, hope you all stay with me the whole time. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Stay tuned for more review content. I got to pick my next horror series pretty soon. I think I have it picked out, but I haven't got the movies yet in hand, so I'll have to get those for clips and all, but I'll make the announcement when I do. So once again, thanks for sticking with me in this long video, and let me know in the comments below what you think about my rankings. You know, am I completely out of left field, or do I make some salient points here? I'm dying to know, as it were. So anyway, thanks again for watching. Till next time, this is Genome, done ranking the series.